set is based in a set of values. It's based in a set of values that we do care about each other, that we do want our groups to succeed, and sometimes that means saying the hard thing.
Shauna and I often take a lesson from, you'll get a kick out of this kind of, from Kabbalah. In Kabbalah, on the Tree of Life, there's 3 pillars. There's the pillar of mercy, and then there's the pillar of strength or severity. And you can look at behavior and group interaction between these 2 poles. That could be something of, oh, there's someone in your community that, you know, their parent died, or they're going through some life changes. They might need more compassion, there might be more mercy involved. It might be that someone needs to say the hard thing in order for the whole group to survive. That's more strength. Between those 2 pillars, there's a middle ground. There's a pillar of balance or mildness. Usually, in true Kabbalistic fashion, I'm typically the pillar of mercy, and Shauna is usually severity. So
it's usually how it works out. So another example of this that's I think more, I just totally lost my example. All right, might be time to move on then.
To move on. but also, just to kind of go quickly, close that tangent off, a mentor of mine often says, strength without mercy is cruelty. But cruelty without strength, wait.
Why don't you figure that out?
Strength without mercy is cruelty. Mercy without strength is weakness. Yes.
Yes.
Too much cobble on the brain.
So these tools are set in our values. You know, we value that each of us has inherent worth. That I have inherent worth, that you have inherent worth. We're giving the benefit of the doubt. I found my example again. So one of the places where this comes into play, how many of you have run a pagan event or an open event or been part of a pagan event where annoying person shows up? Okay? All right. How about creepy person? Okay. How annoying and creepy. How about aggressive person? Okay. How about predator? Okay. All right. So there's a scale. We haven't quite settled on a handout for this, but it basically goes from annoying, creepy, aggressive, predator, call the cops.
Now, annoying guy just might be someone who's, you know, ill socialized. And there's someone in one of our groups, we're running a pagan discussion night, and this person actually had Asperger's. So they would say things that were very inappropriate, or they would go on too long and wouldn't pick up on someone else's body language or any other subtle clues.
And people would tell us, you know, oh, I don't like that guy.
Or I don't want to be around that guy if he's coming.
So Mark and I actually sat down and watched this guy. You know, and he didn't notice because he was kind of oblivious. And we just, you know, we watched.
We're almost like pagan cultural anthropologists. Yeah. So.
But we watched him and we noticed a couple of things. He never smiles. So imagine if I was talking the whole time like this, and I was looking at all of you like this, and I had this kind of really dour face, and I wasn't ever smiling. And I had this kind of weird voice where I totally talked in a monotone all the time.
All the time.
Okay, that's not engaging. That's you know, people like smiles. This guy didn't smile. He seemed to have just no awareness of his impact. He would say just totally inappropriate stuff and just not even recognize that it might offend somebody else. So Mark sat down with him for a few hours on a couple of occasions, talked about his behavior, and said, hey, you know, I noticed that sometimes you take up a lot of time during discussion nights, or you know, I notice you say sometimes, you know, inappropriate things during our discussions. And so, you know, they came up with a set of agreements together that, you know, this person in particular has Asperger's and doesn't read subtlety. You know, if he's going on for too long and I'm like, he wouldn't read it. So we worked with his abilities, had a conversation with him, and now, I mean, he's still not the most engaging person in the group, but he's not distracting.
It's also that I can call him out and say, look, you're taking too long in this discussion. Remember, we've talked about this. Per our agreement, I'm going to call you on that. I'm going to tell you a dirty little secret about community building. Okay?
I'm ready. I don't know what you're going to say.
I know. I love it when we do this. We don't know what we're doing. That there are no blanket strategies. Everything is very specific. The problems in your group are as specific as the individuals in it. Look at the entire picture and try to work with that. If there is one person or two, or hopefully not 5 or more, but if there's a couple individuals that people are avoiding, or they might say, psst, 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 I'm not going to go there if they're coming to the group, then you might have to look at that person specifically. You're going to have to stop, pay attention, and see what that person's doing, and try to figure out a strategy. Now, it might be that they're just, some people just aren't socialized well. We are to make a blanket statement, we are a religion of people on the fringe. Where people that are either outcasts, or when I was growing up, I was like the big old fat kid. They called me Mark the Fart and Butterball, and they used to chase me around the playground. It was horrible. But I was able to get some distance, and that gave me a perspective on looking at the outside world. And I've seen that with so many other pagans and occultists, that we are on the fringe and we have this sort of wisdom from being the outsider.
So a lot of this is also as far as observing people in your group and observing who might the people be that literally the whole rest of the healthy group might leave because of that unhealthy person.
I went to St. Louis. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, so I used to run a group in St. Louis, and I heard stories about a person who literally 3 groups broke up around this person because either it was like a long-running discussion, and one by one people stopped coming until it was only the 2 presenters and this person. Another group where the rest of the people in the group said, oh, we're not going to do the group anymore, and then they reformed in secret because nobody could actually handle. Now, having dealt with this person, I can see why they did it. This person, I believe, has some kind of undiagnosed, it might be schizophrenia. I'm not a psychologist. I can't diagnose. But
we don't even play the one on television.
We don't even play one on television. But based on my sense of her actions, that's I could see why she drove so many people away. And in a case like that, she's beyond my scope to help. She is beyond my scope to offer assistance to. And so, as a leader, it's my job to say, to talk to her and say, okay, here's your actions. Here's the impact of those actions. Is that what you want to do in the group? And then she says no, and she wants to work on it. Then try and work on it with her. And if she continues to do it, then say, I'm really sorry that this community is not a place for you. If somebody's not willing to change their behaviors, we will ask them to leave our groups.
We'll talk about this more tomorrow's ritual class, but humans are very much monkey see, monkey do. We model things very precisely. So that if you go to the annoying person in your group, if you are seen talking to them, then everyone else in that group might say, wow, maybe they're not annoying. If Mark and Shauna are talking to this person, maybe this person's okay and we can give them another chance. Or they might say, wow, Mark and Shauna are crazy for talking to this person, but I see that they're part of this group and I should at the very least respect them or treat them with respect. And, question?
You pretty much just covered what I was going to say. Is there also some responsibility to talk to the normal people in the group about tolerance and acceptance of people who might be annoying but not necessarily dangerous or disruptive?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. Exactly. And so a lot of it is about discernment. And I'll say, I've made the wrong call in the past. And, if you aren't good at discerning things like this, try and connect with somebody else who is.
It's also really good to have, multiple people in your group that can make the discerning call. There's a person who was our creepy guy. And by creepy guy, and I'll just use Sean as an example, he was very tall. I mean, he looked like a Roman gladiator.
I'll try and shrink.
Okay. And he would say, hey. And he, no, hold on. Hey, me and my partner are poly and we're looking for a third. And he would do this within 2 minutes.
Of meeting somebody, yeah.
The physical reality that I had to break down with him over a 6-hour conversation was that...
6 hours.
And this is the sacrifices you're going to have to make as a leader sometime. You might lose your Sunday afternoon trying to explain to creepy guy why he's creepy. And the reality... God's help me. And the reality, physical reality, mind you, was
he's
that...
about 6'4".
He was tall. He would tower over people. He would violate personal boundaries.
He was squinty. He was, like me without my glasses, and I actually have a theory that he needed glasses but was too macho to get them.
Right.
So he kind of would, he was squinty.
When women would move away, he would move closer to them. He was always staring at their chest.
And bringing up to anybody who would listen to him for more than 5 minutes that he and his partner were poly and looking for a third.
And now, there's nothing wrong with ethical polyamory.
Absolutely not.
However, just to put it out there, if you're talking about sex or relationships without getting to know the person first, for you, anyone out there, if you're trying to like connect with someone, but you're not treating them as a person, but just treating them as a future conquest.
You're on the meat market.
If you're looking at someone as a piece of meat, you have no game, and you will fail.
Now, so here's a discernment piece. Mark and I both recognized in this guy that he was a passionate seeker. He was really interested in learning. He had some damage from past covens he'd been in.
And this is where discernment can fail sometimes. He was actually physically abusing his partner.
And we didn't find this.
And we didn't know.
Found that out later.
But our value is to give people the benefit of the doubt. Now, granted, his partner didn't say he's hitting me or he's throwing things or choking me or all the horrible things he did.
Yeah.
She didn't tell us that until after they broke up.
Yeah.
So based on the information we had, we tried to make the best call possible.
Yeah. So that's a place where, in a different situation, creepy guy could have just had no game.
Right.
And talking to creepy person, and creepy, I use guy as a gender neutral term, so I don't mean just men, because I've seen women do it too.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just they have no awareness. I mean, we have a guy that wants to talk. He wants to talk about his whatever esoteric ritual he's doing, and like I'll be setting up before a ritual, and he'll be coming over and want to talk to me about this ritual that he just did, and I'm like, you gotta do this every time, and I'm like, I'm washing my hair, I'm busy. People are literally backing away from him because they don't want to talk, and he doesn't read body language. So try and discern the difference between just genuinely annoying and doesn't understand and malicious. And usually there's an energetic difference, and you can determine that sometimes just by observing.
There's also a difference between blunt communication and direct communication.
Direct, compassionate communication.
Exactly.
Which is where the nonviolent communication stuff comes in.
Like there's this one individual who would always gossip at our events. Now, I kind of lost it as much as I lose it on people. And I said, you need to stop gossiping. No one wants to hear that. You might need to leave. And I was a little bit more aggressive than I am right now on this subject. Now, I was being blunt. That was not the right call.
Blunt is, this is just the way I am, and you have to listen to what I think, what I think about things.
What I should have done was, why don't you say what I should have done?
What you should have done was taken him to the side and said, I know you have issues with this other person in the community. Nobody else here knows that person. Nobody else here really wants to dwell on that. We're here actually for a ritual on blah, blah, blah positive thing, and I'd really like for the group to be able to focus on that, and your actions are going to bring the group down. Can you commit to either not speaking negatively about anybody else right now, or just to not say anything? And if that person can't agree to that, in my case, I'm going to ask them to leave. If it's gotten to the point where this is disrupting other people's experience, I might ask them to leave.
Because doing it in the open would bring it to everybody else's attention, and therefore cause them to start having that person's a negative person.
Yeah.
I need to stay away from them.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And start another whole chain.
Yeah, and so if you're going to have these conversations with somebody, try and take them off to the side, back room, have it be after the fact, you can set it up via email.
What if it happened over email? Something that happened, in public via email or the internet.
Sure.
And maybe it would be best to private email them, or do you think it would be best to get in touch with them physically still?
It's not always possible to get in touch with them, get into the same physical space as them.
At the very least, so with email and people working at a distance, at least try to bring it from electronic communication to a telephone call.
If you can.
If you can.
And you can't always.
Because in email...
You'll get a lot more out of a dialect, out of their tone.
With email, you can't hear tone, you can't see facial expressions.
Yep. make your own assumptions out of words.
I've had this happen all the time where I might say something and someone would say, wow, I took great offense at that. Like, wow, that's a colloquialism I use with my friends all the time. Yeah. But they took it out of context, and I realized, hold on, let me give you a phone call. Can I give you a call and explain what I meant? And usually things will be okay.
Sometimes, and this is more of a, this is something we could talk about in more depth about a specific, but with email and something gets fiery, you want to get rid of the fire. You want to douse the fire. So more words without water just makes the fire burn hotter. So you need to add water to it. You need to add emotion to it. And I can do it in an email if I'm really on my game and that person is receptive. I might begin the email with, hey, I wanted to email off list. I want to email you off list to talk about this. I want to let you know that I'm coming at this with the intention for us to be able to work together, positive, blah, 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 blah,
If any of you are If any of you are having problems writing an email and communication, I highly recommend talking to Shauna. Shauna is an email samurai. And one of her strategies that she's taught me that has been the most effective email strategy anyone's ever taught me is write that email out, be pissed off, swear if you need to, then delete that email.
Just don't hit send by mistake.
Don't put their address in the tube. Because I've done
then delete it. Yeah. Shauna is perfect at how do we put it? Oh yeah, calm. What is it called?
Calm below the wrist.
Calm below the wrist. Yes, that's it. Yeah, I love that one.
It is possible to diffuse things via email. It's harder. So that's a more in-depth thing that we could talk about later if you wanted to. All this is what all these communication tools that we're talking about is if your value is building a healthy, sustainable community, if your value is respecting yourself and your group and other people, if your value is helping people connect to each other, then you owe it to them to learn how to communicate and teach them how to communicate. And I'll say this, teaching somebody who is not willing to make a change, you can't do it. That's probably the single most consistent thing people ask us when we'll do a round of check-in where we say, like, what's, ask Mark and Shauna, what's one leadership problem that you want a tool for? That's the one I don't have a tool for.
As I say in marketing and neurolinguistic programming, you can't take someone someplace they have not already imagined.
I can't change that person in your community who won't listen to anybody and is always disruptive. I can't change that group leader in your community who's disrupting things and gossiping. I can't change that person for you. You can't change that person. What you can do is build your own healthy group. And in some cases, that means asking somebody to leave the group. And so let me just get a show of hands here. How many of you think about the idea of asking somebody to leave the group and you kind of cringe at it? You don't want to do it. Okay.
Definitely.
And that's not a bad thing. It's not, because it shows that you have compassion. It shows that you want to make that inclusive space for people. But if you've got a room full of 20 people and one person is consistently acting out and is not changing, no matter how many times you've talked to them and worked with them and sat with them for 6 hours, they're not changing their behavior, and you're hearing other group members who don't want to come anymore because of that person.
What's more valuable, your weakness in your inability to have a hard conversation with someone, or your group?
And it is placing the value of the group over the one. Now, in those cases, Mark and I will try very hard to get that person into therapy. Like if they can't afford therapy, there's often clinics where their people are training to be therapists and it's inexpensive. We'll try and refer them to somebody who can perhaps help them. But if they're not willing to seek that help, there's nothing we can do other than try and build our healthy group.
And if you can't have that conversation with someone, is there someone on your level within that group that can have the conversation? I can have that conversation with people. I hate it. And I'm not the best at it. Shauna's amazing at it. So
I still hate doing it. It's hard.
But typically Shauna will be the person that does that in the groups that her and I run.
The only other tip I'm going to offer on the communication front before we move into group structure is notice that most of the time when I'm giving these examples, I'm talking in a really even, friendly tone of voice. That's the tone of voice I give feedback in. I don't get upset. I don't raise my voice. I try and make it as a non-charged tone of voice as possible. So I'll say, you know, at that event we were doing last week and you helped out with the ritual, I need to offer you some negative feedback. Is this a good time? Or I need, you know, constructive feedback, whatever you want to say. I need to offer you some feedback about that. When would be a good time for you?
And notice Shauna asked, is this a good time?
Mm-hmm.
If someone's, you know, dog just died,
that's not a good time.
It's not a good time.
Yeah.
You know, show a little mercy and compassion there.
Yeah.